You're listening to Off to Market with Scott Farley and Hamish Chadwick.
Okay, well, a bit of a treat here today. A series of episodes are going to come to you. The very knowledgeable people I've known for a while now, Stewart Gow and David Cotton. Now, these guys have been in the startup and management of company space, especially the venture capital and angel capital raising space for many, many years. But I guess overall, I mean, I could go on and list all the things they've done, but it's ridiculous how much has been achieved in their lifetimes. Again, great people to have on the podcast just to divulge all their knowledge over their lifetimes in a short segment that you can listen to on the way home. But in the end, I guess when I look at the list I've written here, really what these guys have done over the years is just help people get off the ground. And not only that, I mean, obviously there's also been some very high level stuff done as well. One particular situation that was David's turnaround of Precision Eyewear Company, doubling its value and listing it to sell to OPSM for a record profit. So this sort of stuff, you know, these sort of people don't come around every day in your general life. So it's great to have them on board. We're going to start off by letting David and Stuart introduce themselves and just discuss one of their companies which they've got going right now, which helps startups get off the ground and even more advanced companies get off the ground and grow their position. And that's a company called New Ventures Australia. Stuart and David, thank you very much for coming along. If you'd like to just start with David, just introduce yourself, a little quick rundown of what you want to be known for in life and what you've achieved.
That's right.
Your legacy.
Yes, 10 minutes. Thank you very much, Scott. Yeah, it's great to be here, and it's great that people are interested in listening to what we've got to say. So my background is loosely, it's in company turnaround. It's essentially crisis management, so I'm usually called in when a corporation is just about run out of money. So I've got to go in there and find out, well, how
I'll give you a call. That's me most days.
Yes, well, why not? If you want to contact me, you can ring Scott. But essentially, in a lot of cases, it's where the entrepreneur has just got to the stage where they've either let things slip or the business has just got too big for them and they really need someone with some management and corporation management capability to come in and give them a hand. So that's, in a nutshell, that's what I do. I think probably we might do another podcast. I think talking to Scott earlier.
Yeah, we'll do a series. There's so much knowledge in these guys. We've just got to do a number of them.
On how we do it and what things to look for. But certainly, I'll just give you just one thing that can help you in your business. And I always try to determine the one thing that determines whether a company is going to succeed or not. And I call it a key performance indicator. And my definition of a key performance indicator is that if this indicator is not working, then the company is at risk. And a very quick example, Scott mentioned Precision Eyewear, which was one of the turnarounds I did. What I found was that our sales as a corporation were based on the number of eye tests that that the optometrists were doing at the branches. So if the number of eye tests was going down, I knew that our sales would go down, because for every 10 eye tests, I knew that we'd get, on average, 5 sales. That's 5 sales of optical frames and lenses. So if all of a sudden the eye test went down, I knew we were going to have a problem. So it was up to me then, through our marketing people, to make sure that to keep up that steady stream of people coming through the various branches to have eye tests, so that we can maintain our sales. So that was my definition of a key performance indicator. It's not necessarily everybody's definition, but it's, in this particular case, it's, if this is not working, if this metric is not working, then you know that the business is at risk.
Stewie, give us a bit of background there, if you don't mind.
Yeah, thanks, Scott, and thank you very much for inviting both of us too. So I actually grew up in a food manufacturing family, R.M. Gower & Co., which was probably Queensland's largest food manufacturer for 85 years, set up by my great-grandfather in 1900. He was the Arnott's distributor in Queensland and facilitated the first wheat export from Queensland to England, and then Cold Foods. He grew that up to be, a very large ASX-listed company by 1986 when it was purchased by Sarah Lee in a friendly takeover. So I grew up working in the factory and observing that life cycle of the company from start-up through to exit, and the restructuring of the Queensland economy at that time, when the textile clothing manufacturing industry was sent offshore, and then followed by the food industry.
Yep.
So I've always had a passion for helping small business grow and fill that gap, if you like.
Yep.
So for the last 20 years, I've been helping startups with the government in various roles, with Austrade in Silicon Valley as Australian Vice Consul and Trade Commissioner for IT, so helping IT companies enter the North American market. And then more recently, from 2000 to 2013 in the Queensland government, helping startups through the venture capital unit, it was called in those days. And we were seeing, my little team was formed from scratch, and we were seeing 1,500 companies a year. Well, it was a bit of an anomaly for the Queensland government, because I had a queue of inventors and small businesses at my door, and normally the government's a specialist at sending people away.
I've seen that.
So I created a bit of a stir,
Yeah.
and we had to change the government systems to fit in with that.
Well, there's a lot of work involved. It's almost hard to imagine how a government employee can actually churn through the amount of work that's required to see these people on their way, on a positive, trajectory to a success. It's actually a lot easier just to turn them away, I guess.
We'll send them to a seminar.
Yeah.
So we flipped that model on its head.
Yep.
And like you, Scott, if you see enough small businesses and startups, you become well aware of their needs and the gaps in the marketplace.
Yes.
Funding being one of the gaps, management team being the other. So we set a course to fill those gaps and set up various programs.
And that's where New Ventures comes in.
Yeah. So
because obviously you've sort of transformed that from what you're saying, from more aimed at getting startups off the ground, which you still do, but now trying to make people who got the minimum viable product, MVP, which is a working prototype or approved principle, to the point where they're partnering with a company that can do something for them and take them that next step, which is our model as well. We'll definitely put you in touch with some of the clients we've got with MVPs with potential. So let's just run us through there. A lot of the stuff you're doing with IT, but you're obviously doing consumer products as well and things like that. Obviously it's Turfex is another company you're involved with, which is obviously you've invested in as well.
Yes.
You're helping and mentoring and investing in that company to get it off the ground. Is that part of the New Ventures Australia program, or is it a side venture?
that was a side venture. So New Ventures Australia has identified a gap in the marketplace, which is from that minimal viable product stage, working prototype stage, where you've had a round of angel investment typically, maybe matched by a government grant, accelerating commercialisation, for example, or an Ignite grant through the Queensland government. And there is a bit of cash, a bit of a management team around, and just waiting for a customer. The difficulty is in Australia finding those customers, unless you're selling coffee or nutraceutical products. It's quite...
beer's good.
Yeah, beer. Beer's always good. It's quite difficult. A lot of the markets are overseas. What I found over the years is that startups can have prototype products being tested in the marketplace, or they might have a few early customers, but scaling up, which is what you need to make a viable business, is difficult.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's a shame to see the stuff go overseas, but we just don't have the infrastructure here or the numbers. So you can do trial launching. I mean, we quite often try and launch products here to test the market. There's sort of three things. There's the technology. Have you proven the technology? There's the IP surrounding that. Is it protected? And does the market want it? So when you're at a prototype and you haven't yet got sales, it's the big unknown is, does the market want it? So if we can do that, not always possible, but yeah, it's great that can connect those people overseas. So are you still, I mean, obviously the angel investment has been a big part of both your careers. In New Ventures, are you still helping people get angel investment to get off the ground? Or do you expect them to come to you with an MVP, a proven product?
Yes, so New Ventures Australia has evolved into bringing corporate partners from overseas to Queensland to meet those viable startups
Beautiful, yeah.
So filling that gap. So instead of startups, jumping on the plane,
Yeah, it can be very
suitcase in hand,
expensive.
very expensive.
Very expensive, yeah.
Not knowing who to meet.
I can give you experience. We went across before Christmas, and for me to pack up and go overseas for a week and take 2 clients with me, it's a very expensive process. And you're right, you have to be meeting the right people, or it's a waste of time. And the amount of times I've been to trade shows for people, and I've gone and seen 30 or 40 companies. You come back, everyone's excited. Even my own company, the Click Thinkers, we went to America, went to ICAST. Everyone's jumping over the moon, taking you to dinner, all the rest of it. Very enthusiastic, and I call it 30,000 foot amnesia. You get back on the plane and come home, and everything evaporates. It's, who are you again? Oh, you're trying to chase them up on the phone. It just goes nowhere. It's very, very difficult. So it's a great initiative.
What we recommend, if people are thinking about going overseas, is to do a budget. And the reason for that is because when you're at home, you can jump into your car. When you're overseas, you need to get an Uber or a taxi or a bus or some other form of transport. When you're at home, you can just go to the fridge and get yourself some breakfast or whatever. When you're overseas, you have to go down to the cafe and buy it. Same for lunch and dinner. And when you're away, you have to sleep somewhere. So you have to get a hotel room. And I haven't even started talking about airfares and that sort of thing.
And you're not making money either. If you work for yourself,
well,
that's
right. So and that's one of the reasons why a lot of companies actually don't venture overseas is because of the actual cost. So when you actually get started, unless you're doing some sort of royalty deal, so that someone else is distributing your product and you get a royalty, then you've got to be over there. A lot of your time has got to be spent over there managing the process, making sure that people are getting at the message is getting to the right people.
And as an inventor, sometimes you're not the right person to be going and seeing these people,
exactly.
so you have to pay someone to go and do it.
That's right.
So when you bring people across here, how are you choosing those people? Because obviously all the different projects, you're not going to always suit one person. So are you bringing someone across who's across multidisciplines and purely investing in the company, or are you bringing people across who are specialists who want to take the product and working with that inventor forward?
So for the next year or two, we're focusing on digital entertainment, artificial intelligence, digitalising industry supply chains, cryptos, blockchain technology, the cyber security, around that. So faster, cheaper in this industry supply chains, and that applies across industry sectors. So that's the focus at the moment, because that's the investment trend that investors are investing in overseas. So our first speaker that we're bringing over in April or May is Edith Young, Yeung, and she's established a $200 million US venture capital fund in Silicon Valley called Proof of Capital, and that specialises in taking US technology to China, but she's scouring the world for blockchain, industry supply chain, digital technologies at the moment.
Right.
She's invested, her first investment, strangely enough, was out of South America.
Right.
So she's looking to Australia for deal flow.
Excellent.
And that's why we're bringing her out.
No, that's magnificent. I wonder if there's an opportunity, I'm looking at that, if you actually paying for an airfare across to America or wherever, you can sort of manage that, a startup can manage that. It's only when you're going over there to search and you come back empty-handed, that's obviously a very risky business. But if you were to generate some people over here with X amount of, maybe someone in a consumer option, someone's digital, someone in beauty or whatever, and you were to organise a seminar over there with the right people in the room, that may be another opportunity to get everyone in one place at one time. Some opportunities and pitch.
And when I was with Austrade as Australian Trade Commissioner in the late 90s, that's what we'd do. So we'd bring the typical trade mission over, and I'd organise for meetings at Oracle and Datacom, those types of companies, and introduce them to Silicon Valley Bank. And Larry Lopez was there in those days, and he's now CEO of Commercialising Australia, the grant program. Sorry, not Commercialising Australia, Accelerating Commercialisation. They've changed the name. So we'd do that introduction, that sort of show pony introduction, and that was very successful. The typical figures for Austrade in those days, and this is secret insider information.
There we go, here's a gem.
Gem alert.
One in seven, typically 1 in 7 participants in trade shows overseas were successul in finding customers, and which meant that 6 out of 7 failed.
Spending a lot of money for no reason,
But from Austrade's point of view, it led to good KPIs. And for that one company, that was highly successful.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I mean, that whole success rate thing is we try and do everything we can to try and qualify it on the way and increase that, but they're obviously handing back to an inventor and then losing their way is a big part of why they fall apart. So
the important thing is that
in touch with the right people
is that don't take that as failure. It's one shot. It's just it's just maybe one avenue that doesn't work. Try something else, because there's lots of different products. There's lots of different ways to market. So don't necessarily take that as, oh, look, it's not going to work.
You've talked to one person, you haven't got a result.
That's right. Regroup and then have a think about, well, what else can I try? Don't give up. I mean, that's the important thing, is that don't give up. Because nothing's ever failed until you've said, oh, I don't think this is going to work.
We always try and build fallbacks. So
that's right.
First thing, you might go along and try and license a product to a company. If we approach a number of different places and it's just not working, we have fallback situations where we try and plan into the business that if it doesn't go to a licensing agreement, can we manufacture it? Get more investment and manufacture it? Go through a distribution network.
Right.
If that doesn't work, can we manufacture it and sell it ourselves? There's a lot of direct. So there's never.
That's exactly.
It's all about persistence and tenacity, and sometimes fundraising too. You need to be able to have access to fundraising.
I think the key persistence and tenacity is all about stick-attedness and just not taking no for an answer.
It's the one thing that differentiates my winners from my people who don't win, is just the fact that there's just.
If you believe in your product, just keep going. Keep going.
And if you haven't been, first of all, to the right people to make sure you've got the right product. I mean, there's people I've turned away from here. It's just not the right product.
That's right.
It's just too difficult. Some of the things I've done have just haven't been the right products, and they've just made it difficult. But it was just a matter of just re-establishing what you're doing and changing your business plan.
I'll just jump in again. I hasten to add that when I was trade commissioner, my strike rate was much higher than that.
Good. No, I'm the same. I mean, that's the general thing. 1 in 10. That's what you hear all the time.
Right.
And you always hear that 99% of paintings don't make money. Paintings are a different story. They're not a commercial venture. They're just a knowledge sharing situation. But to get high rates, what was your rate?
So when I was there, we had Newspol brought in to independently verify export impact for my office, and for the second year that I was there, we had over $100 million in export impact.
That's awesome.
And it was much higher than 1 in 6, 1 in 7 success rate. And the reason was because I built up a relationship with the companies, and I kept in touch with them. And the more successful companies would come back, a second or a third time.
I'm looking for new stuff.
Because the people that they'd been introduced to by myself or the Austrade team, or they'd met at the trade shows, introduced them to a second or a third, tier of introductions. And it might be the second or the third introduction that was the successful, distributor or the investor or the partner. So again, it came down to what you're saying.
Success breeds success. It's
persistence.
It's good to see that that relationship working out for you. You mentioned grants. Grants are a really nice way of offsetting investment. You guys are highly involved in that. What level can you take people? Are you happy to sort of help them to? I mean, the grants process is difficult. I mean, I've been doing it for years and I still hate the idea of it. It just drives me nuts. Just the wording, it's a whole different way and process that anyone else in business is used to doing. Government grant system is awesome, but it's bloody hard to navigate.
You can crack that nut.
Are you guys happy to help with that sort of stuff?
Well, there are people who specialise in writing up grant applications. And we're not that well. Stuart probably had a bit more experience than I am,
but you know people that can.
So it realistically, you try and get as much down as you can so that the person who's writing it up knows what you're talking about. But essentially, it is a very difficult thing. and what the government need is not necessarily what you think they need. So you really need to talk to someone who's a specialist at doing those sorts of things.
I can vouch for that. It's whenever the grant stuff comes through to me, I just get a cold sweat. Listen, guys, we'll put a link to New Ventures Australia at the bottom of this post. It's an incredible resource. Thank you very much. I'm so glad you guys are doing it, because it's one of those, as you've realised, there's a definite gap in the market, and an area where if you get it right, can make the success of a company or a failure of a company if you get it wrong. So well done for that, and we'll go on and we'll do a few more, try and tap a bit more out of your brains in another series, we'll follow on with it.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, guys.
You've been listening to Off to Market with Scott Farley and Hamish Chadwick.